Welcome to the Drawbore Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Perry, a timber framer and licensed professional engineer. In this podcast, we will travel through the world in timber framing through conversations with timber framers, architects, engineers, and many other folks in the industry on their unique perspective in how shaping timbers has shaped their lives. Through these conversations, our hope is for folks of all interests, whether new to the craft in timber construction, designing, and engineering, or looking to build a home or other structure, or those who have been building timber frames their whole lives to gain new insights and perspectives through these conversations. Now, what's with the name drawbore? What is a drawbore? Why is it used and what is it good for? That's a good question, young tenants, and follow along, you'll be sure to see. In short, it is a simple method offsetting peg holes within a timber connection to pull the connection or joint tighter. But this is our goal: stronger connections through conversations. This is the Drawbore Podcast, and I'm excited to have you along. Well, we've got another great episode for you today. My good buddy David Moyer will be joining us, and he's from a little suburb from outside of Philadelphia, kind of where I grew up. But he built his timber frame home, and he's got an incredible story to share with building. If anybody wants to build your own home, he's worked on that and has done everything from designing the home, building the timber frame, moving the timbers around, and raising it with himself and a small crew. Great perspective, and if anybody is looking just for some insights and motivation and inspiration, I think this is going to be a great episode. Well, Dave Moyer, great to see you. Great to see
Thank
you
you.
again.
Thank you for having.
Um, yeah, so we have an awesome episode. I'm super excited. You have such a unique perspective and experience in and around the timber frame world, so I'm really looking forward to getting kind of into your head and into your story. Um, yeah, so just from there, so we'll get into it a little bit. You've built your timber frame, um, and just about everything else yourself in the house that you're currently building, living in, working on, all the stuff, but you're doing it all yourself, and that is so unique and an inspiration, I
For
think,
better
to
or worse.
for just about anybody out there. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
just to have the dream of building your own home, and then you are in the midst of it, and I mean, so I'm really excited to dig into that. First thing before we get started, I ask everybody a question. So the name of the podcast is the Drawboard Podcast. So, how do you feel about drawboards? Did you use them? Do you like them? What's your take?
I did not draw bore.
Okay.
I didn't. I like the idea of it. Um, hmm. Boy, I got to go back a couple years and think about why I made that decision. Was it laziness? I mean, I don't really think I'm lazy, but the idea of putting it all together and then taking it all back apart again, um, I'm not even sure that was it. I, I I didn't use them.
It's
I,
okay.
I
Yeah.
could be convinced either way.
Yeah. As we'll get into it, I understand very well what you mean by putting it together and taking it apart and what you were going through. So I could understand why you made that decision for sure.
Yeah,
Um, so as we'll get into
and,
that.
and it hasn't fallen apart yet, and the
No. Mhm.
joints aren't sloppy and coming apart. So I feel a little vindicated.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've come over a handful of times as you've been working on this thing, and I mean, like I said, every time, man, I give you kudos for what you're doing. The joinery looks great, the timber frame looks great, the patina, everything looks great, and we'll get into all that stuff too.
All right.
But yeah, the whole thing looks amazing. So, timber, like, how did you? So this dream of a timber frame home. Where did you first learn about timber frame and get you juiced on timber frames?
I mean, I've been in old barns, and I've always thought they were cool. without even really thinking they were something I could build. Right. So, like, you go in an old barn and it's like, oh, well, this is just how they used to build things. And, you know, giant timbers. And, when you first see it, you don't, half the time the timbers have been reused and there's flooring that's not there anymore and odd pockets. And, so you don't really know what you're looking at. But, I kind of always knew I wanted to build my own house. I didn't I didn't go straight to it being a timber frame. Um, when I first got excited about them, I thought I was going to not do all the traditional joinery, that I was gonna have big metal brackets and lag screws and through bolts and stuff like that, um, because that seemed attainable to me. Right? I'm like, yeah, I could do that. I can cut the timbers to length and bolt them together. We can do that. Um, but then the more I got into it and I started building some furniture and just got involved in woodworking other than framing, uh, the idea of some mortise and tenon joints and dovetails didn't seem that daunting. It's like, oh, I can do a mortise and tenon. This is a big one, you know. So
So so we'll just take a step back here too. So
yeah,
you're not a timber framer.
no, no, I'm a mechanic.
So so as a profession, you're not a timber framer. You were kind of interested in timber frames, just kind of seeing them looking around and
Yeah.
the furniture making that you were doing. But just for folks out there, a lot of times, I mean, if you have a dream to build a timber frame, you're probably a timber framer, or you're going to have a timber framer build you a timber frame home. You were building furniture and excited about some old buildings that you walked into. Is that kind of
Yeah,
where it started?
pretty much it. I like furniture. I like things that are well made. Um, that the idea of IKEA stuff is hard for me to stomach. Even though I'm sure there's some in the house, but I've just always been drawn to things that are well made, right? And I haven't been in the building trades at all. Um, but like I said, I've been a mechanic. I did go to school for mechanical engineering for a couple years, so I've got basics in understanding how things go together and how they work and how the forces interact. Um, so and I know how to do some drafting. So I put a lot of those skills to work.
Yeah. And did you do all the drafting for your house, or did you have somebody else
I
do it? Or
did. I
okay,
didn't do like the prints, but I did a model. So,
okay,
I did a scale model in AutoCAD architectural. So my
okay.
wife's she was a teacher. Well, she's still a teacher, but she was a kindergarten teacher at the time. So I used her teacher access to AutoCAD and got a free version of AutoCAD architectural. So, uh, which by the way is like a virus. If you anything you design on a teacher free version, it was going to be on those prints forever. So the engineer who looked at the plans and stamped them, she was a little frustrated with that watermark that was on everything, but it was fine with me.
So going back to so we could just take a little step back. So how long ago were you just having this dream where it was becoming a dream? Kind of walk us through that process and timeline for you and all this.
Probably 2014 is really when I started designing,
Okay.
um, and really going through that process. Um, we had bought a little tiny house in a neighborhood that doesn't have any little tiny houses. So we bought this 600 square foot, apple shed, essentially. That's what it was built for originally. Um,
Oh,
and and it had been converted into a tiny little house, and so it was a great neighborhood, so we bought it. And I always knew I was going to add on to it, uh, but life happened, and we didn't add on for, boy, we didn't even start for like 8 years. So
Okay. Okay.
because we bought the little house in '07,
Okay.
and that we've been living in that, pretty much the whole time.
Yeah.
But
Raised
yeah,
two.
so
Yeah.
it yeah, and we raised two boys in that house. But yeah, so it we obviously needed a bigger house. We wanted a bigger house, and um you know this is a long time ago that we really started this. But I got interested in timber framing. I do know a couple timber framers. You're one of them.
Yeah.
But I was well along the process when I met you. That was,
Hmm.
yeah, I already had timbers and whatnot. But I know Hugh Lofting, and he's a timber framer out here. Um, but I had gotten some books. I got the Timber Framers Workshop with Steve Chappell.
Hmm.
And what I was finding when I was looking for information on how to design a frame is so much conflicting info, and all these people have different ideas about how it should be done, and I so it was good for me to grab one resource. And I'd asked Hugh if he knew Steve Chaplin, if he knew what he was talking about, and can I trust what he has to say in his book? And he obviously knows what he's talking about. So I got a lot of my design hints from there. Um, the plan didn't come from there. The plan is totally my own, um, but it was inspired, and I learned a lot about the joinery from there. You know,
Hmm.
with furniture making, you're not really using square roll anywhere, right? And not often anyway. Not for not for the kind of stuff I've been doing. So,
Right.
learning square rule from there, and once that clicks, it all makes sense. But
What kind
and then
of
the
what kind of design stuff did you pull from the book that you kind of used on the house?
well, I mean, coming at it fresh, with no experience in timber framing, just the stuff like, how fat should a tenon be, right? Like,
Hmm.
and just some basics there, right? Are we doing, in an 8-inch timber, is that going to be a 2-inch tenon through the middle of it, or inch and a half, or 1 inch, or what is it? Um, so that stuff, some of this his advice, I broke those rules. He had one rule about never having two directions join at the same spot on a timber. So like on the post right above my head here, right?
Hmm.
They come in at virtually the same elevation, and that does take a lot of meat out of the timber there. It's I'm sure it's perfectly fine once it's up and standing, but they I've got a bunch of those around the house, where the second floor is. So that was contrary to his advice, but it just rules of thumb there, and the basics of how a frame works, like what's the summer beam, right? And where does that go, and what do we do with it? How to. I don't know if I guess I did get it from there. The dovetails locking everything together.
Hmm.
So once the joists are all in, at that point the pegs are almost superfluous, right? Because they really lock. They they go in one direction on the second floor, and then the third floor the other direction. So they really lock everything in.
Hmm. And then I think you had, is it a 12 pitch roof? And you kind of had like a truss, right? Is that what I'm thinking
Yeah.
of? Is that from
So
his book or is that from somewhere else?
no, that was. I don't know if I would do that again.
No?
But I did it. Yeah, it's 12-12, and that's fairly steep. But I like the way it looks, and you know, later I've read some stuff that says use any pitch other than that one. Uh,
Oh,
so I had gotten another book that was all about like architectural details on New England colonials, and that person said don't don't use 12-12. Anything else, steeper or flatter. But
okay.
but I don't
And
think it looks.
that's what you're going with anyway, right? The colonial. I mean, the steep pitch, they're all. I mean that it's really efficient. I mean,
Yeah,
for a new carpenter coming in, a 12 pitch is pretty efficient, and if you can use as much material and compression as you can, that's kind of what you're doing for the most part.
yeah,
Um,
and you're right for being a novice. It was nice having that 45-degree angle everywhere.
mhm.
It's just made it simple to work.
So 2014 is when you were starting to think about it, right? When did you start breaking ground or get timber? You had timber first, right?
We got timbers first. Yeah,
Okay,
and that was a. I knew the timbers were going to take me a long time, so I didn't want to break ground first. And
right.
and the timbers did take me a long time. I spent. We got them at the end of 2015,
End of
and
2015. Okay.
yeah, and we
And then,
took 2 years to cut the joints.
okay, I'm thinking back to how long I've known you.
Yeah,
um,
I think I met you right after I got the timbers. I,
okay.
shortly after.
Yeah, right around, yeah, 2015, 2016. It's almost 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
And then what's just a general idea, like what's the general footprint of the new building, and I don't know if you know anything or remember how many timbers or board footage or anything like that, but just a general
It's
footprint.
yeah, so it's 26 by 32. Uh, and then with 9-foot ceilings, it's it's 3 stories. So, the loft is usable space. We have 2 rooms up there on the third floor.
Right.
Uh,
Okay.
so it adds up to be, the loft is not all enclosed. So, there is a sort of private loft above the master suite. So total square footage of the addition is 2,000 square feet.
Okay.
Give, yeah, give or take.
Gotcha. And then so how many, yeah, that's a lot of timbers for one that
A
you
lot of
have on
timber.
your property, and it's all on your property.
Yeah,
What material did you use again?
it's white pine.
White pine. So,
Yeah,
did you have a material handler? Because how many pieces? You had everything at once, right?
I hit everything at once. So I
Okay.
I rented a forklift, like a telehandler, to
Okay.
unload the truck and get things stacked up, and but I didn't own any of the equipment, so it was like I'd rent that, have that for the weekend to do that, but then just moving the timbers around was I would move batches of them into the garage. So like I'd move all the tie beams into the garage at one time, and or all the posts in whatever I was working on, I'd move all of them in, and so I'd get them there. I made these little stools. I got out of the timber framer workshop.
Mhm.
These little ponies. They're super strong, little plywood 2x12 stools. Um, and so I put them out like a little roadway and put the joist stock on them. So the joists are all 6x8s, and then use pipes and roll all the heavy timbers in on the little roadway, and then have them set up in the garage.
Mhm.
So it was a process every time I had to move timbers in or out. But then once they were in, it would take me a while to work on each batch, right? So
Right.
then when I was done, I'd paint all the joints with anchor seal and then send it back out.
Okay.
So that's where they got all the patina sitting out there in the weather.
Yeah. So how long? So you got the timbers in 2015. How long was
Yeah,
it until you cut the last joint?
boy, it was probably was probably a year and a half till I cut the last joint, and then we had some other stuff to deal with, and then digging the hole and doing the foundation and all of that. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I'm trying to remember when all that happened. I think it was actually a little longer because the frame went up. The frame went up in January of 18. That's
18.
when we did
Okay.
the raising.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, and I remember. So you had this. So white pine. It was rough sawn, right?
it
Was
was
what was
rough
that?
sawn. It was
Mm-hmm.
not planed. I
Mm-hmm.
so we hand planed everything, which I had the boys help me with that. But every batch I would move in, I would hand plane them before I worked on them. Not so much to change any of their shape, but to take the roughness out of them. They were
Okay.
all the mill they came out of with a circle saw mill, so I wanted to have that nice arced, you know, uh, mark every now and again on the timbers. So I don't know if there's any behind me. Yeah, you can kind of see it. You know,
Yeah.
so it's it's not rough off the mill, but it's not fully planed either.
Right. Nice. Well, yes. That you got the texture that you're looking for.
Hmm.
Being out in the yard for a while. I mean, you got the patina and color. I would imagine that you're kind
Yeah,
of looking for from the inspiration from old barns, and at the
yeah,
same time, it's seasoning while it's out there.
it is, and that's why I picked white pine because believe it or not, the price difference wasn't crazy to go with red oak from the same
Okay.
mill. But everything I read in my own experience with red oak is that it was likely to move, and
Right.
I knew it was going to be a while. So I had very little trouble with it moving.
Yeah. Yeah. That was that's one. Yeah. So after you put it up, I mean, if I remember right, you didn't have a lot to deal with in terms of, finagling with the joints after it had been sitting. I mean, red oak, like you said, is going to twist and do all these, especially if you're sitting for a long time
Yeah,
and not getting locked into those connections. And
yeah.
yes, I mean, as a, kind of novice just starting out, that was probably the best decision that you made, to be honest.
I think so.
Uh, you would have had a
Yeah,
lot of trouble, and it was probably, quite a bit heavier going with oak with,
it
you know.
yeah a lot heavier.
Mhm.
So yeah, those tie beams. The tie beams were 26 feet. So that would have been a whole different project moving, an 8 by 14, 26 foot red oak timber. I don't know if I would have been doing it by hand.
So
But I
when
only really had one. I had one timber twist, one important timber twist, and
okay,
but we found that before the raising day and made some adjustments. So
yeah,
that one
nice.
ended up with a tenon that was tapered because it had to get the thing to sit flat.
So you're doing the whole timber frame. So you design the timber frame and the house
Yeah.
yourself. Um, Basically did all the design, the HVAC, mechanic, all that stuff too, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I did all of
Designed,
that.
and then and then poured your own footing and slab and literally building the whole thing from the ground up, the basement on up, and the trim work and the
Yeah.
masonry
Yeah.
and everything else. Trim,
And
um,
even
yeah.
with all of it, thinking back, the raising was not the most stressful day. Pouring the foundation was the most stressful day of the whole thing. I think that's the most stressful day of my life so far.
Yeah.
That was tough. The pump truck operator, when he got there, he took a look at my foundation or I used insulated concrete forms.
Hmm.
And on the inside of it, I have the pilasters under each post. And um, so I had these forms that I had built out and were kind of, I don't want to say they were scabbed onto the insulated concrete forms, but they kind of were. And he took a look at those, and he said, "Look, it's not for me to tell you what to do, but I think those forms are going to blow out."
Mm.
And yeah, so there I am. I've got 9 feet of height in concrete to pour, and I was stressing about that the whole time. I think it took 2 days to calm down after that, but it
Yeah.
worked. Or nothing blew out.
Yeah. I would. Yeah. I would imagine.
I had I had images of what all that concrete would look like pouring into my basement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think I remember. Yeah. I think I remember you around that time, and you did seem a
yeah,
little bit stressed out. But
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that totally makes sense.
That was a lot. I felt like with wood, anything that goes wrong, we can deal with.
Hmm.
With the concrete, you get a blowout. What do you do? You're not only are you done for the day, but then you've got to get all that stuff out of the basement, and it
Hmm.
just seemed like a terrible, terrible disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah.
But it
Well,
didn't.
I'm glad that that went well. So what
Yeah.
with the raise you said the raising didn't go too bad. I know we had several conversations about
Hmm.
joinery and thinking about joinery before the raising and how you're
Yeah.
gonna like which joinery to pick where for depending on how you're gonna raise it. Because with a frame there can be multiple ways to raise it.
Right.
So yeah, if you want to go into that a little bit, what did you learn on the raising portion of it?
Yeah. So the raising went really smoothly. It. I mean, it was a lot of work, like you expect it to be. But what I did is I assembled. So there's four bents in this frame, um,
Mhm.
and so I assembled them laying down just in one stack on top of each other, right on the deck, and not including the roof trusses. So they were separate. So basically, just big square up to the tie beams. Uh, and then so they were assembled, and I raised them up with a forklift with a telehandler. um, so I would lift those up and then set them in place, and then once the first one was braced up, we got the connecting timbers. um, so we built little scaffold towers right where the connecting timbers would go, so you top plates and whatnot, and slid those in, attached them, and then strapped them to the scaffold towers. Then we would, because I only had one machine, right? So we'd strap them to the scaffold towers and then go get the next bent and lift it up and lean it into place, and then have a person at each joint to guide the timbers in. So, braces are already in. The braces were in the connecting timbers, and then ratchet strap them together, and put some pins in, and move to the next one. So
Okay.
it took 2 days to raise the sort of bottom box, and then the telehandler I had wasn't tall enough. It wasn't long enough to raise the roof trusses.
Hmm.
So rather than rent another one, we built like a scaffold tower up on the third floor deck, and then we had a like a chain come along, or a chain hoist up there. So then we'd use that as like a little crane. So build a scaffold tower, and then use big straps and strap it down to the frame so it wouldn't fall over, right? And then lift up the trusses and set them into place. So that took a lot longer than 2 days, because it was just such a process, and I didn't have a whole crew then. It was just me and my dad, and
Oh.
he's 70 years old, so you know he was up there. He was a big help, though. you know
I mean, so when you said you had a whole crew, how many people did you have in that crew for the main raising?
Boy, we probably had 20 people here.
Oh,
it was
that's
it
awesome.
was it was everybody I knew, really.
Yeah.
But and it was the coldest day of the year. It was like single digits.
Mm.
It was terrific. And I'm glad it was, because the next week it was super muddy, and it would have been really difficult to work in, and difficult with the forklift and all that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, 20 people though. I mean, this is kind of the thing with I don't, this is why I got into timber framing initially. is, I mean, to build a home like this, you kind of need a group of people, and
Yeah.
it really just kind of gets everybody's blood flowing
Oh,
and just
people loved it.
camaraderie. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Everybody had so much fun. I heard it. I heard it afterwards that, because none of these people were framers. They were just regular old people. But, we had some construction experience there. I had some cousins who know what they're doing, and and they were a big help. You know, but it was fun. So I was in the telehandler when we did the whole thing, um, and so that was a whole challenge, right? Because you have a whole crew there. They're working and they can't hear what you're saying and you can't hear what they're doing, so having somebody in between was a big help.
mhm.
um, somebody who could just like stand there right next to me and talk to me and then could yell, holler at them. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was that was a really good experience. I'll send you the file of the invitation I sent out to everybody. It's full of innuendo and double entendres about getting the wood up and all of that. So I put a lot of effort into that one too.
It's I mean that's something that you're gonna get on.
Everybody's going to appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean you're just gonna be driving by and there's just gonna
Yeah.
be a stand of big wood there that there wasn't any before.
Absolutely. And I get all my friends together and help me get it up. It was terrific.
But I mean, what 20 people with no experience and 2 days? I mean, that's you know an efficient crew with guys out there. It might be a handful of guys, but still 2 days to get the main box
I'm,
up
I was
with what you
pretty
guys
happy
need.
with it, but then again, I did a lot of prep work beforehand. Like
Hmm.
every joint in the thing went together, because like I said, I didn't draw bore, but I did put it together, drill the holes. That was the last thing I did right before raising, was drill the
Hmm.
holes for the pegs.
Right.
So, everything got test fitted in the, couple weeks before the raising.
Hmm.
And, thankfully it all went together on the day of the, the raising. But, it was cool to see because, totally unskilled people can drop in joists, right?
Hmm.
Especially
Right.
dovetail joists because they're not going to fall out, right?
Right.
So they can just, and so it was cool to see, you'd look away for a minute and then look back and they're putting it together. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, when you have the box, so you just have the box made, then you're dropping the joist in and
Yeah,
just kind of rolling with that. Did you say they were wedged too? They're dovetail wedge.
yeah, dovetailed and wedged.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was
And
neat because the frame when it first went up, and maybe me being a novice, it was cool to me. You might be really experienced with it, but the frame was wiggly. Right, it wiggled all over the place when we first put it together, and then driving in the wedges, it tightened things up. It was pretty cool.
mhm.
You know, it,
Yeah, it is pretty wild after you get a frame up and you're standing up on the roof and you just kind of temporarily brace before you get the walls attached.
yeah,
You don't realize, I mean, braces do help for sure, but it is
yeah,
pretty wiggly when you're up
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Um,
It is.
so it's one thing you're not. If you don't expect it, you probably, yeah, as you're walking along plates, 20 feet up in the air or
Oh
whatever.
man, well the heights, that was something that I struggled with.
Mm,
Because as a kid I was a rock climber, and I felt like if I had a harness on, I'd be comfortable, and that was true. With a harness on, I was relatively comfortable. But there's times you don't have a harness on, and or there's nothing to put a harness to, and it. I did struggle with the heights. uh I got there, I got comfortable with it, but I never got fully comfortable with it. Maybe you don't, but it I feel like once I have a harness on, if I know I'm not going to hit the ground, I'm reasonably comfortable. But but working up on the third floor, we when it was just a deck, when there was no roof trusses up there, it felt really exposed.
mm,
I was more comfortable in the scaffold tower, up even higher than I was on the deck. with nothing to hold on to. But
Yeah, I remember the first time I stood on a plate as a rock climber as well. Kind of you're used to kind of looking up and then
yeah,
occasionally at your feet, but well, like, occasionally you're at your feet or looking at your feet, but as you're walking around on plates, like that's all you're looking at, and then you're just kind of on a balance beam, and it could
yeah.
be 10 feet in the air, it could be 5 feet, whatever it is, and then all of a sudden, I remember the first time I got that tunnel vision was like, oh, this is not rock climbing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and in climbing, you always have something for your hands, or at least, there's a rock face. You're never above everything,
Yeah,
and on the frame, it not having handholds right in front of you felt very, very exposed.
yeah. So right now so the frame is up. So you said that went up in 18,
Hmm.
2018. And you got a roof on it, you got a deck on it, you have walls up. So what have you learned along the process so far, getting things together? What would you do again or not do? What did you run with? As
So
everybody like talks about the skin too. Would you do like on the roof
yeah,
build up or wall?
I would definitely do some things differently.
Yeah.
So I did not use SIPs, and now I haven't used them. Maybe I would hate them, but doing what I did, I feel like SIPs were the way to go. Um, I balked at them at first, just because of price,
Uh-huh.
and but they would. I think they would have saved so much time, you know, rather than do the build up wall that we did.
Okay, so you did a it was a 2 by exterior wall, right? So then you have
We did, yeah, 2x6 vertical, studs on 4 foot spacing, and then 2x4 run horizontal every 2 feet. Uh,
okay.
yeah. So we were trying to limit penetrations through the wall, right?
Hmm.
So, and then what we did between the 2x6s is we put foam. So we had 4 inch thick foam go between the 2x6s, leaving the 2x4s on the inside to hang the drywall on and run
Hmm.
wiring. And then we did, outside of that, we did 1 inch of foam, a foil faced foam, which is why my cell phone doesn't work in the house anymore.
But yeah, yeah, the 2 by 6 at 4 foot, you're kind of almost at a SIP level at that point. Um,
Yeah.
but
At just the
you're
amount of labor and in doing it, I think the SIPs would have been worth it.
Yeah. The hard thing is, I mean, take it or leave it, whichever way you're using the SIP. Because I love SIPs too. But I mean, if you're cutting holes and it's like if you have everything planned out already, or if you're just planning on kind of modifying on site, because it can become a pretty dirty job pretty quick if you're doing
Yeah.
that on site, and slippery too. You get some of that foam on the deck, and just like sawdust on the deck, it kind of becomes a
Hmm.
bit of a slippery job too. But trying to figure out how to fill in foam or cut out foam, and then where you're popping wiring and all that stuff too. Did you run all your electrical and all that stuff? That's all through the studs and everything too, or do you
Yeah,
run?
that's through the studs, and I mean, there's an air gap. There's uh, the 2x4s are laid flat, the ones that
Mhm.
run horizontal. So there's an
Yeah.
inch and a half air gap behind the drywall. So we had room there to run electrical,
Okay. Okay.
and then plumbing is all internal in one central bay.
Okay. And you thought all this stuff out before, like when you're in the design phase, right? Or
Yeah, yeah, it's all in the model.
okay.
So almost all of it's in the model. I didn't quite put every pipe in there, but I did lay out, where the toilets are going to be and the, bathtubs and all that stuff.
Right. And then running your chases and vents, and so
Yeah.
you basically had, and this is something I think a lot of people overlook even with a brand new custom home. I mean, you had a ton of time to do it kind of on your own, but you looked at literally everything from the electric and the HVAC and where you want everything, where to stack everything, where to put, it all just kind of made sense for you, but you had it thought out and how it would work with the timber frame. And I think that's one of the hardest things for a lot of people when they're doing a timber frame is integrating all these systems.
Oh, that was a
You know,
challenge.
and
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't say there was anything easy about the HVAC. Um, coming up with something that's going to work, and but still minimizing the amount of ducts. So,
mhm,
these days, no, everybody does a return in every room, right? And so there's a supply and a return in every room. Um, I didn't do it that way. I have one central return, but then above the doorways, I have a little through duct, to go through the walls, for the bedrooms and stuff like that. But
mhm.
a lot of that for me was trying to minimize the amount of duct work I had to run all over the place because I mean, you know how it is in a timber frame. There's not a lot of places to hide it.
Yeah, yeah. Unless you get creative and you kind of do like built up floor and wall systems where you can kind of
Yeah,
like create some chases that way. But that is one thing that a lot of folks will overlook is you get your floor deck on and it's right over top of your beautiful timber frame, and then now how do you run, a plumbing drop? You need some
right.
elevation drop. So where does that actually end up, and are you end up creating soffits and all that sort of stuff? So thinking through it, and then you're so in tune with the whole building as you're designing it and tweaking it. I think that like I said, I got to hand it to you for going through the whole thing. You put more work in than a lot of designers do. Um, and just thinking
Well, I
through all
had
those
to
different
because I
things.
was learning it from scratch.
Yeah. But yeah, like I think I've said it before. If you like for one, the craftsmanship and just about everything that you've done, from the timber frame to masonry to everything else, has been top notch. Where I mean, I know you said you're a mechanic, but if you ever decided to switch trades, you'd for sure get a job in a heartbeat because taking all that on your own is a big deal. And working through everything, like I said, all the mechanical systems.
No, I appreciate I appreciate that. It means a lot. When you're here by yourself just working on it, you don't get any feedback, right? It's just you're working, you built a thing, you move on to the next thing, right? And it was funny that so I was so stressed out about the building inspector.
Mm.
I lost sleep over this, and the guy turned out to be a super nice guy, right? But um, I just everything had to be what I imagined to be, up to code, right? And so, I was expecting this really thorough inspection, of him to come and look at stuff and measure, oh, is this wire, stapled close enough to the box and all this stuff, right? And so I was kind of looking forward to the feedback from the building inspector. He was like the guy I was waiting to hear from, and he barely spent any time in the house. He came in, he looked around, he asked a couple questions about small things, but same with the electrical inspector. I think the electrical inspector was in here for 3 minutes. He came in, he asked me about the kitchen wiring and do I have two countertop circuits, and then he left. But
Yeah, and
it was kind of a
hardly an
letdown.
attaboy.
Like, I wanted to hear something from you. I
Yeah,
guess that was the attaboy, right?
yeah,
Him just putting the sticker on it and leaving. But
yeah. I mean, that's and I know you, so I know you would like a deep dive into little things to tweak or anything like that.
I was
What?
prepared to defend every decision I made. You
Yeah.
know,
This is this is your master's thesis or the
so imagine you do your master's thesis, right? And you hand it in to the master's review board, and they don't even look at it, right?
Mhm.
They just stamp, give you the A, and move on. And you're like, well, wait a minute. I did all that work. I want you to look at it.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
just thinking about that. just something that I pondered. Going over, I was in France a couple weeks ago with the Timber Framers Guild, um, and so all those old church roofs and cathedrals, they're all timber, right?
Hmm.
Before you do the stonework below, you want a roof on, so you have these timber trusses that are supporting the roof, keeping the whole thing dry. Nobody sees the bell tower, but it is a lattice work of giant timber that is half lap
Mm.
dovetailed everywhere, and nobody sees it. Some of the most beautiful carpentry I've ever seen. You can't see it.
Yeah.
And
See,
so
I
like
like that stuff. I that to me, that's what it's about. It's
you tapped into that whole life force or lifeline of all that, like, it's not just for me, it's for the whole family. Like you're tapping into all that sort of stuff, like, sure I didn't get an attaboy from the inspector, but like I built my own timber frame house. Like,
well, I feel good about it, and it is funny, because like the wedge dovetails, they're those are invisible. There's not a place in here that you can see a wedge dovetail, right? You see where the joist goes into the summer beam, but you can't see the good stuff,
mhm.
right? But it's in there, you know.
did you um did you sign it anywhere or put your
We
initials anywhere?
signed, I don't think I signed the frame. I didn't do a lot of the traditional stuff. I honestly, I didn't do it. I didn't do the branch on the top. I, I don't know. I thought about it, and people have asked me why I didn't. I don't know why I didn't. We did. Everybody who was here for the raising signed. Uh, they signed one corner, but
Okay.
but it's also not visible, right? It's on the outside of the frame.
Yeah. That's fine. I mean, the reason and especially now I have a deeper perspective after coming back from France. We saw sundials that were kind of carved
Mm.
into, so sundial from, I don't know, 1500 something,
Wow.
like that was the time there. Like, so a sundial that's on the masonry, the compass rope, because they're all using, it was scribe roll for everything.
Hmm.
So the basic geometry of the building is scribed into a few of the timbers in some of those places, so you can get the scale and pull the scale out, and a couple other things. I mean, you still have time to chisel all that stuff in there, but it is one thing. I mean, if anybody is ever in there taking it apart, doing the same admiration generations down the road, like you were doing with these old barns.
Yeah,
I mean, your signature is in all the chisel work, but
yeah,
you know,
it's there.
yeah. Yeah, I thought that
It's,
was
it's
fascinating just going over there too. And just, it wasn't just marker. The bell towers was kind of cool too. You could see the dripping of the candle wax. There's little burn marks as it falls down the bell tower. Um, so
that's
that
cool.
was
From the
cool.
workers. That's
Yeah.
cool.
So so where are you at now in the build, and where are you going? What do you have next?
So we're doing finish work now on the inside. We have the drywall's all up. It's not all finished. I'm doing kind of one room at a time. That's not the way I wanted to do it. I wanted to do everything all at once, but I'm married, and when we so we needed a second bathroom, so I just finished the powder room downstairs. Um, we've got flooring. The only place the finished floor isn't done is in the living room and dining room where I am now. Everywhere else has the flooring is done. I'm really looking forward to the kitchen that's coming soon. So I've got a pile of poplar waiting for me for the kitchen. So and that came from my dad's property. I brought home a couple poplar trees from there.
Okay. And a lot of the trim and cabinetry, that's all from your land or trees that you got from friends and all that stuff too, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and like all the exterior trim is from a friend, um, and then yeah, interior we're doing mostly poplar because everything's going to be painted. Um, there's I feel like there's a lot of wood exposed here, right?
Mhm.
In a good way, but I don't want to. The look we're going for is to go. We start with the frame, and the frame's all exposed, and then go more refined from there. So, we're going to do painted trim and, not a lot of like, I'm not planning on any live edge furniture here.
Mhm.
We'll keep it like a little more colonial and everything from here on out.
Okay. Have you noticed there's also when you build the 3D model in the computer and you stand in the space. This is, I mean, you were doing this design before augmented reality was really a thing.
Yeah.
And these walkthroughs, did you notice any big changes that you would have made with your design after things kind of got up and closed in, or are you feeling pretty happy with everything space wise?
I'm pretty happy with it. We were never building a big open house, right? So um, the rooms aren't huge. The one I'm in right now is uh, pretty much 12 by 25. For the meat of it, and so it's a big usable space, but it's not giant and spacious like a McMansion. You know, but that's honestly not what I was going for. What's been fun for me is I had the I had the space in my head, right? So like when I designed it, I had a feel for how the spaces were going to feel, um, but nobody else did. Like, and so seeing my wife and my family and whatnot see all the changes and then suddenly understand, oh, that's what's going to happen there. I get it, right?
Mm.
And that's been cool because I forget that that it being in my head doesn't mean it's in everybody else's head.
Right, and how you envision it and how you feel and all that stuff too. We're actually just talking about this, a very simple thing too. I mean, my dad's a tall guy. He's 6'5", and he's also a woodworker. And I also know a few other timber framers that are, in the upper sixes. But when you build a sawhorse, for one, do you build it for you or do you build it like how is that working for everybody in the team? And
Yeah,
yeah, so how you envision a space and feel in a space is different from person to person, and
for sure.
especially building it and your perspective, everybody else's perspective. I'd imagine that's an amazing experience just to see, their take on, walking around through as things change and close in and adding materials and textures and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and for me, never having done it, I don't just automatically know all the rules of thumb and this is just how you do this, right? So you know I know the code is the minimum to build to, right? But when you're designing a staircase and you've got a timber, overhead at the other end of it, right? There's got to be a head clearance there, and what is that number, and figure that out. And I think that stuff has been helpful for me to not do anything really stupid, right? Because that's something that you can screw up in the design phase. Um, and I'm not sure anybody along the way would have caught it till I actually built the thing. You know,
Right. Yeah, end up in a beautiful grand staircase that you have to squat through.
yeah,
be
yeah.
would be a real shame.
Or that's the thing the inspector looks at when he comes in. It's like, yeah, I don't know how you're going to fix it, but it can't be like this.
Hmm. If you would you build a timber frame again?
Hmm.
Is that I mean, you're still working on this. Is there any hopes and dreams for anything down the road? Would you do this
Oh, right,
again?
like in real life, not going back in the
Hmm.
past.
Yeah. Well,
In
both.
would future me do it? Not a full house. Uh, not the way I did this one.
Hmm.
You know, I'm probably there's going to be a pergola out back. I'll do some framing, but um, not. I don't think I would build a whole house like this again.
Yeah. If
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
so that'd be
Now, if
future
I
you.
that's future me in real time. Past me, would I go back? Like if I woke up and I was 33 years old again, would I do it again? I probably would. I would do some things differently. There were a lot of things I did that were to save money, but ended up costing a lot of time. Right. So I would probably buy um, a man lift of some sort, like a JLG lift or something. Uh, that I did so much off of scaffolding and ladders that just because I didn't, it's expensive to rent those things, right? So I'd rent them every now and again, but that's what, $1,200 for a weekend or something like that. That's a lot of money. So I think if I bought one, it would have sped up the process quite a bit, and then sell it when I'm done. Um, so I would definitely do that differently. Um, I might take more time off work. I'm just doing this on the weekends. So
I mean, yeah, that's one. So, and folks don't know this, but your wife is an ultra marathon runner, and I
yeah.
believe just before the raising, because I moved out of state when you guys were just about to do the raising. It was just around that time, and I had helped her out with a race, and I was asking her about like ultra marathons and just if she understood the ultra marathon that she's in with this house being built. I mean, the perseverance to continue forward each and every day when you want to just
Yeah, yeah,
relax and you're taking the weekends to do
yeah.
this.
Sometimes I do relax. Sometimes I do.
Well, and
Yeah,
and like yeah, I very much understand that time. Yeah, time is very valuable, and like in this whole
absolutely.
conversation, I appreciate your time and your insight. Because this could also be an hour, for something else that you could be doing in the
No,
house.
no, I'm happy to. I don't work on the house during the week. Not very much.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But but yeah, I mean, like that time is very valuable, and it's like something that we're not going to get back. I do
Yeah.
know, yeah, just with everything that you've done on this house, I sure hope that it's going to inspire somebody else to, for one, create their design, and just go through it like you did. And I mean, you've been pouring your heart and soul, blood, sweat, and tears into this whole thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
would you do everything again, or would you sub a little bit more out? Do you think?
Mm. It depends. Part of it for me was I wanted to learn how to do each part of it.
Hmm.
Right. So I wanted to learn how to do the concrete work and the footings and how to lay block and then how to, do the masonry and build a chimney. And so, I wanted to learn that stuff. And, part of how I see what I do in life is just a gaining skill. Right. Like each thing that I learn how to do, it's like, okay, I know how to do that now. And I've got that in my back pocket. I don't know what I'm gaining skill for. Right? Like I don't know what the end game is. Is there going to be some, big final boss that I need to know how to lay a brick and cut a joint? I don't know, but I just felt like I needed to learn all that stuff. Um, if I were to do something again, I would absolutely sub out a lot of that stuff. But I don't know if I'd walk around afterwards and be grumpy at the work they did. You know.
Yeah, at the same time, I mean, the manifold that you have in there is immaculate. Just, the
Thank you.
brickwork. And you said that you've never done masonry
No,
before this. Like the
no.
brickwork that you have outside, the trim work is phenomenal. Um, I mean, the whole thing, you could tell that you've put a lot of effort into, futzing over every little detail. And you know, as far as, the final boss thing, I mean, I had the same conversation with a couple guys um, that had worked on the Notre Dame Cathedral after that burned.
Hmm.
And, same thing. They're building a timber frame or they're timber framers. It could be small projects or whatever it is, but you just don't know that that skill is being honed for you to then work on, you know, Notre Dame Cathedral for that restoration.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, not necessarily
Well, I don't,
final boss, but it's,
yeah, I
there's
doubt
something
that's in
else.
my future, but there's something.
There's something else in what you've got learned in your toolkit that is gonna either pass on to other people as inspiration, or your kids, and you know, it's gonna be used somewhere else down the line
Yeah.
for sure. So I think,
Well,
I mean, I would agree with you if you like learning it all. It's amazing. It's definitely gonna take a lot of time.
yeah, yeah, for sure. You know, and but it's all attention to detail. That's it. You know, it every piece of it, the masonry is attention to detail. You know, every brick, you're lining it up to the line. You're tapping it down to the joint the right size and making sure it's level. And it's just that little tedious attention to detail all the way along the way. And
Mhm.
same with the layout. And snapping lines and every piece of it is just. I also don't necessarily, having not done most of this stuff before, I don't know how good enough is, right? So, sometimes I might fuss with it well beyond the level of good enough, you know. Somewhere along this project, I learned the phrase that don't let perfect be the enemy of good enough. And, and that wasn't something in my, in my vocabulary before, because I always wanted it to be perfect. Um, but there is a point with some of it, that if it's functional, that can be good enough. And so for me, uh, maybe on the next one I wouldn't be as fussy. I don't know.
I think, yeah, you're in you're in a beautiful place with
Yeah.
that kind of that torment between perfection and good enough. I had a conversation when I was in Japan. We were walking through an old temple, and it just looks beautifully immaculate, manicured, and everything. And there's no grass, there's moss in the like those old temples. And one of the guys that we were walking through or kind of touring around with, he had mentioned, you know, as they picking up the leaves, um, and they get all the leaves off the moss, one of the monks will come out and sprinkle a few leaves on the ground. And it's like as you know that you can meet that perfection, it's good to just knock it down a little bit, you know. But you're on that search and that
Yeah.
quest for that perfection too. Where,
Yeah.
you know, what is good enough, and then to be able to be okay with it after the fact, after you've gotten there. I think, yeah, there's something beautiful in the journey that you're on there. With, I don't know if I would change it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing that I've learned too is to not hold on to the mistakes that I've made in it. So, there are things here that aren't right. And there's been a couple things that have gone wrong, and I just don't worry about them. If I know they're good enough, I just don't hold on to
Right.
them.
That's where the good enough comes in. It's like, and then also the term, it's not right, but it's not wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
One of those. And are you so speaking to kids, and I can't imagine if they really can grasp. I mean, s- the two boys were a little older and were kind of working with you, but I don't know if they can really grasp kind of the journey and everything that you were on. Like building this whole thing. Have you thought about like putting together a scrapbook or just like a little book or memoir or anything for them?
Yeah, and I have a ton of pictures and stuff, and I have stuff where they were involved. Um, so I don't know that they're I don't know that they're aware of me as a person yet. If that makes sense. There's that point where you're growing up where, and they're my stepkids, so I'm stepdad, and there's that magic point somewhere in your 20s where suddenly this guy who has, been the authority figure, or as like a negative side, or like the teacher on the positive side. He's got all these other roles, but he's not a person. So I don't know that they're quite there yet on realizing I'm a person and seeing what I'm doing. You
Yeah.
know, um, they're slowly maybe learning some of the lessons I've taught them, or understanding that they know how to do things that their friends don't know how to do. So they're going to come around.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always something that you kind of wonder every now and then, generation to generation, you built this amazing thing. And I mean, I've done it where I took for granted some amazing things that I had in my childhood that I didn't quite realize until later, where I'm
Yeah,
sure they're going to pick up, they pick up a tool sometime working on their house because they have to and they already know what to do, you
yeah,
know. Then they'll like, "Oh
you
yeah,
know.
thank you."
Well, Brendan's finding it. I don't know if I told you, but he's going to HVAC school now,
Okay.
and so he's finding that the other kids in the school, they don't know how to swing a hammer, and so I don't know if he's evaluated why he knows how to do these things, but he he's
Yeah.
realizing that he does know how to do a lot that the other kids don't.
Yeah. That's pretty amazing. It's
Yeah.
pretty lucky. Pretty lucky to you know, have a dad and a role model like you that, I mean, like I said, for one, just it's not it's a risk. What kind of risk is it? It's huge. You're kind of biting off a whole elephant at once in
Yeah.
small chunks and teaching them how to do it and persevere, both you and your wife in the things that you guys are doing. I think that's super awesome, and I'm looking forward to getting the story out for people and for folks to
Yeah, I'm happy to tell it. I
listen.
think it's cool. I'm glad you're doing this.
Yeah.
Uh,
David, I really appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, thanks for chatting and being on the podcast. And I'm looking forward to seeing the progress again next time I'm home and stop by.
awesome. Thanks for having me, Brian.
Yeah, thanks, David. Thank you for watching another episode of the Drawboard Podcast. We loved having you. If you're on YouTube or any other social media, you know what to do. But also, if you're looking for some more info and behind the scenes, consider joining us on Drawboard Podcast Patreon. We'd love your support.